Hello everyone, it's Gojira Prime here with a little video, and today we are going to be taking a look at Transformers Legacy Armada Starscream. This was a figure I got quite a few years ago when it first came out, and if I'm honest, it's probably my second favourite version of Starscream out of all the versions of Starscream we've had over the years. I never owned the original Armada Starscream. When it first came out back in the early 2000s. I seem to have completely missed Armada back then. But I decided to get the newer version of Armada toys, and I've got a few of the others as well. A couple more I would like to get. So what we'll do first is we'll go through the vehicle mode, robot mode, and then we'll do some size comparisons. Now, as I said, I never had the original Starscream Armada toy when it came out many years ago. I know that with the original one, obviously you've got the Minicon, this being a modern interpretation of that figure and a lot smaller. You don't, unfortunately, get a Minicon with the figure. In fact, the only accessory you do get is this sword, which he can hold in robot mode, or if you wanted to, you can place on the wing. The jet mode is, as far as I'm aware, not based on any particular real fighter craft. But I have to admit, I really do like this jet mode. It's a nice, like sci-fi jet mode. You've got the engines at the back here. His arms just fold up under here as well. It all folds away quite nicely. Some very nice molded details and the traditional Starscream colours of red, grey, black, and a bit of yellow in there as well. Aside from that, there's not a lot really to say. You can see his head, unfortunately. But that was also something that was prevalent in the original Armada version of Starscream as well. Now, I do kind of wish that we were getting some repaints and remolds of this figure. I know with the original figure back in the day, there were two different versions of Starscream. There was this version. There was a repainted version to look like Thundercracker, which was meant to be like a super-powered version of Starscream. And then there was Ramjet, who was a crazed servant of Unicron, and I think they did do a Skywarp as well. So it would be nice if we got at least those versions of this mold also, but it's been a few years now. I think Takara did do the Super Starscream version. Hasbro hasn't. And it's very unlikely we're going to get the other versions as well. But all in all, this is a really nice jet mode. I like the whole design. I like the nice molded detail on the canopy. All in all, it's a nice jet mode. There's not a lot more really to say about it than that, really, at the end of the day. It just is a very nice science fiction jet mode. So what I'll do is I'll just pause the video. I'll get him transformed, and we'll take a look at him in robot mode. Okay, so now we have Starscream transformed into his robot mode. And again, like I say, I didn't have the original Starscream toy as a kid, or a young adult, I should say, actually. I was in my early 20s when Armada first aired. But all in all, from what I can tell from the pictures, this is a pretty accurate modern-day version of the figure. Again, you've got that classic style G1 Starscream head. Nice molded details again. You can see the legs, which were previously the engines at the bottom there. Now, one thing you can do with this toy that you couldn't do with the original, from the pictures I've seen, the original had his thrusters always like that, basically. So he always walked around with these engine bits sticking up at the rear. With this modern version, you can have them down. And in the original version, when you plugged the Minicon into him, who I think was called Swindle, if I remember correctly, these thrusters would turn into laser cannons. Well, they do the same here. They turn into laser cannons, or massive blasters, and you can put blast effects in them if you do want to do that. So you can have him displayed in that option if you wanted. You can have him like that, which is much more like the original toy. But personally, when I have him on my shelf, I prefer to have, if it will work now, there we go. I prefer to have him like that. It just looks better like that, in my opinion. And like I said, they did do a version of this character, I think, in Japan, where he was the Thundercracker colors. So blue and a bit gold. I would like them to do a Skywarp version and the Ramjet version from the Universe toy line, but I very much doubt we're ever going to get it. But saying that, they are doing Universe characters at the moment, what with Razor Claw and Majin Zarak, so you never know, maybe we will. So articulation for the figure, the wings, they do move if you want to move the wings into different positions. He does have movement at the elbow, movement at the shoulder, movement at the elbow. There is no hand articulation, which doesn't really matter for this type of figure. He does have hand 5mm ports, so you can put some weapons in there if you wanted. The legs do go all the way forward. They do go a little way back with the backpack, but not a whole way. They will go further. They will go all the way back if you do have this up. He does have movement at the knees. There is a little bit of ankle, and he can go back and forth with his foot like that as well. But that's more to do with the transformation process than anything. But at least you can get him posed in some different poses if you want. And he has the balancer thing there at the back. So, just for some size comparisons, here he is with Optimus Primal. So he's actually bigger than Optimus Primal. Here he is with Huffer from G1. And here he is with the Transformers Cybertron version of Starscream. Now, I know in the original version of the Unicron trilogy in Japan, Armada and Energon was the continuation of one story, with the characters having just different bodies to sell new toys. Cybertron, or Galaxy Force as it was known, was actually meant to be a completely separate continuity and storyline. But at some point they retconned it so it was all the same one after Hasbro had done the same. Hasbro made Armada, Energon, and Cybertron all one continuous story, just with the characters having different bodies. I personally like to think of these as two different versions of Starscream, just purely because of how the story was for this guy, where he ended up becoming this honorable warrior who ended up sacrificing himself and then being brought back to life. This version of Starscream, the Cybertron version, I'll do a video on him at some point. He was much more like G1 Starscream for me, at least character-wise. So, is Armada Starscream worth getting? Well, if you're a fan of the Armada toy line and cartoon series, then yes, obviously he is absolutely worth getting. All in all, this is a fairly... No, that's not fair. It's a pretty damn good figure, actually. It's got nice articulation. The details on the figure are all quite nice, molded and stuff like that. The transformation sequence is pretty easy, actually. I mean, he can be a little bit weak at the knee, but I'm not holding him in a very good way. The transformation sequence is very, very simple, very, very easy to do. Once you've done it once or twice, you'll remember it hands down. So, if you do get a chance to get him, I would get him. He's definitely worth it, I think. It's a nice figure, nice version of Starscream. And I do wish that they'd reuse this mold more to create the other versions of the character. But there you go. So let me know in the comments section, is Starscream something, or at least Armada Starscream, something you got? Or is it something you're interested in getting? Do let me know in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe. And thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.